Hi, what's going on? Wanka judgment that's over South Africa. Anyway, whatever, right? So here it is that I am going to Bara. I have moved over Barakwana tax rank, okay? And I am now preparing to go home, but remember it's dark now. It's dark. And in my mind I'm thinking, how do I get from Soweto Bara to my home? I knew that I had to find myself go pre that middle layer so I can take a taxi to Reprobate where I stay. So how do I get to pre from Bara? Know and understand that while I am tabulating in my mind knowledge that I have in waking space, I could not find certain bits of information. I literally did not know how to connect to that taxi rank Kopri, which is in downtown Johannesburg. So how you would get home from Soweto Bara to Reprobate, where in my neighborhood in waking space, you would have to get on a taxi that takes you to downtown Joburg. This taxi that takes you to downtown Joburg, a lot of times it goes through, what do you call this? It passes Southgate and then it goes on the M1 South North, where it eventually ultimately just finds itself in what do you call this? In downtown Joburg. That's how we get to downtown Joburg using taxis, okay? And usually if it comes from Soweto, you probably don't end up go Bree, you end up go Norte, and then you have to walk all the way to Bree unless you take a taxi go Norte and walk and like have that drive. Otherwise not a nice walk. It's doable, but it's longish and it's in that bustle of downtown Joburg. Yabora. I don't know if they've changed that. I don't know if there are taxis in Soweto that take you straight to Bree. I know there are taxis that go to Soweto from Bree. I don't know if there are taxis that from Bara will take you straight to Bree, but in the very early stages where I was still taking taxis in Soweto, they were yet to go to Bree. They were most of them just going to Norte. So that is the knowledge that I had in my dream. However, pockets of that knowledge was missing. I could not find the connector. So there is no way that I could get to Reprobate where I lived, right? Without first taking a connecting taxi that would take me from Bara to downtown Joburg, and then from downtown Joburg I would go to Reprobate. That connector was the understanding that was wiped off my memory. In this dream I literally did not have the memory of that connector. So it's like there was a gap that was unaccounted. That was an important step for me to get home to Reprobate where I live. There was a gap and it was all erased in my dream. Literally, I was told one and it does not end up in home. Guys, you know, yes, like it. The judgment of this on this land is exorbitant, and I'm gonna interpret these dreams. I trust that even likely in and of yourself probably trying to figure out what this might mean, but I'm gonna explain what I believe, what God was showing me. All right. So anyway, I am thinking in my mind, how am I gonna get home? And then I go to a taxi boss. He was not a taxi driver. He was a boss that stayed at the rank that basically called the shots. Okay. And this dude was rocking a top hat. He was wearing a top hat and a very old school apartheid outfit. Okay. It was a black man and he was holding a deck of cards in his hands that he kept on shuffling through, and he had a crowd around him almost like a celebrity, and this crowd was actively trying to get his autograph. This crowd of people was not even trying to ask him wait. Like if you find a taxi boss or a taxi marshal at a taxi rank, usually you would approach this guy and be like, baba ngicela ungitshele ngingathola kuphi taxi ePinville or ngingathola kuphi taxi Deep Kloof. Like you ask them, where can I find a taxi to go to Deep Kloof? That's usually the conversation you have around a taxi marshal or a taxi boss, some kind of dude that is standing there as a little bit of a head honcho at a taxi rank. You don't just stand around him doting over him like he's a celebrity and then asking him for an autograph. But in this dream, this taxi boss guy was encircled by a whole bunch. Oh, mind you, another thing that was evident about le taxi rank le Ebara, it was huge in comparison to the real life taxi rank that is now today in Soweto or Deep Kloof. That one was massive, guys. It was big. It was so large that I had an understanding that it was all of South Africa that was there, and they all were queuing in snake-like queues waiting to get in some taxis. But there was one particular queue that people were being forced to go to, even though the rest of the taxi rank had other destinations that people could queue in to go to. But there was a pulling, like a yearning, a drawing that drew us to this one line where the taxi boss was standing in front of it. So I went to the taxi boss because I wanted to ask him. Remember, the knowledge of that bridge as to how to get home was gone out of my mind. So I wanted to find out how in the world to get home to Reprobate. And I noticed that there was this little crowd around this man like he was a celebrity. When I got closer, I noticed he was holding a deck of cards. He was wearing a magician's top hat as well, okay? And he was when the closer I also noticed that this crowd actively signing their autographs. He was signing his autograph. He was signing his autograph, giving, like, these people stood around him to get his signature. He had a deck of cards and he was also signing autographs of a whole bunch of gathered crowds around him. And I was like, who is he? What's his name? Is he a celebrity? Does he sing? Anyway, whatever. I went up to him and I was like, sorry Puti, how do I get home? My question to him was, how do I get home? And this taxi boss didn't say anything. He merely just gestured with his finger and was like, go to the back of the queue. That is the queue that you are going in. That is how it is that you go home. I knew in my dream that it was not the truth, because I knew in my comprehension that there is a bridge that I need to go over. There is a connector route that takes me to the taxi rank that is going to give me a one-way ticket or a one-way trip home to Reprobate, where I live. And this taxi boss showed me the queue of a destination that I did not sign up for. I didn't sign up for. I knew that was not going to get me home, but I was so mesmerized and so taken by whatever thing he was emanating that I just went straight to the back of the queue. Lo and behold, where did that queue go? There was this white girl at the back of the queue. Mind you, white people generally don't take taxis in this country. It's usually a black man's like sport. Do you understand? It's a black man's form of transportation, maybe the coloreds, but largely white folk don't use taxis, at least last time I checked. Largely, okay? I know there are some who use them, but largely it's mostly black people that commute using that form of public transportation. And there was this white girl at the back of the queue. This girl, I recognized her as this former colleague that I had at MTN. This chick did not put sorcery on me. The two of us were the same age when we started working at MTN, and we also had similar, what do you call this, positions when we started working. She was an administrator working for some general manager, and I was as well for this one senior manager. Okay, and we both had same level jobs when we were the same age. She was a beautiful young white girl. It's like she was the white version of me, even in terms of career and trajectory and everything, right? Let's say that her name was Ali. Okay, so Ali worked in the job that she worked at MTN, and we used to work closely together a lot of times because as administrators we had to sort of kind of exchange notes with our bosses. We spoke, it's like PAs, they talk to each other and they don't necessarily go to their bosses directly. So those were my interactions with this girl, and as the way that I grew in corporate, MTN, she also grew. So she also quickly got out of admin and quickly got a promotion of sorts and started doing more important work. And by the time that I lost everything, she and I were still on the same level. It's like we were growing in lockstep with each other, like literally just birds of a feather with each other. But she got to maintain her life trajectory while I was knocked off mine. All right. This chick also was, when I left MTN, she was engaged to be married, okay? Because sometimes we'd meet in the corridor and find out, so what's going on with life? So I'm getting married, all that jazz. So she was engaged to be married. That information is relevant. The fact that she was a white girl is relevant. The fact that she and I had a similar trajectory at some point is relevant. And the fact that by the time I left, I got booted basically out of my job. She was she was engaged, about to be married. Her life was basically going swimmingly. Our lives were going swimming. My trajectory just suddenly got halted, whereas hers continued on from there. This cheeky was at the back of the queue, right? She had just joined that queue, and she was wearing this like mini skirt, like it came out very clearly. Her clothes were utterly black, right? And she was rocking this mini skirt, exposing much of her legs. Okay, she was basically scantily clad at the back of the queue, and she was just standing there. And when I got there, right, oh Thanks, but very unlikely to see you here. I did not expect to see you here, Ali. I mean, go Soweto. I told you guys that taxis are usually a black man's form of transportation in this country, public transportation in Jalo. So for me to see a white girl, you know, who was a little bit kind of bougie, Larny, in this queue, go Soweto, it was weird. So in the dream too, it was also weird. So I was like, weird to see you here type thing. But anyway, nice to see you. So I mean, where are we going? Where are we going? Like, so I guess you're, you know, Southgate. Next part, guys.